20 years ago, we started a conversation, and the whole world joined in. It began in a small town on the Adriatic. A few lines of code, one SMS, and a simple belief that technology should bring people closer. From that very first message to hundreds of billions sent every year, we've helped people and brands connect across every corner of the globe, on every channel that matters. We've powered growth through co-creation, built networks, strengthened communities, scaled startups, forged partnerships, nurtured talent. Along the way, we changed how people communicate. And still, 20 years in, we are just starting. Now that we've got the whole world talking, there's no turning back. Infobip, one communication platform, billions of conversations, 20 years.
Okay, hello everyone and welcome. I think let's wait just like one more minute to start. Just in case more people are joining. And in the meantime, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay, I think we can start. So first of all, thanks everybody for joining us today. I'm Petra Šašić. I'm a product marketing manager here at Infobip, speaking to you from the HQ in Croatia. And with me today, I have Akarat Gandhi, our sales director for APAC. We have Marko Gojevic, he's our senior product manager, and our guest speaker, Kelford Hoare. He's actually a digital innovation leader, an author, and a charter IT professional in the banking and financial services sector from BCS. We'll have diverse perspectives here today on this topic, and we'll be chatting about where trends in communication with customers are heading, especially in the age of AI and autonomous decision-making, of automation, and we'll also be showing you a live demo of how we implement exactly that in our platform to bring outcomes such as cutting costs, enhancing customer experience, satisfaction scores, and boosting retention for businesses. So a lot of interesting topics today. Let's get right into it. And before I hand the mic off to Akarat, I just want to give you a little run through the agenda. So this is what we're going to be covering today. We'll start off with giving you a little bit of the context. So why this moment in APAC matters today. Akarat will then make the case for why this current approach to customer experience is broken. We'll also introduce AgentOS platform to you. And then Marko will show you the platform actually live. Kelford and Akarat will give us also an honest opinion on where APAC enterprises actually stand in the fireside chat, and we'll also finish off with your questions. So actually you can, whenever you have questions, you can start off with writing them in the question section. So it's easier for us to find instead of in the main chat, but whatever you find easier. And also now that I've given you a short run through of the agenda, I'll hand the mic off to Akarat to tell you a little bit more about what brings us here today and what challenges we want to address.
All right, thanks, Petra. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello from Bangkok, but hello all the audience from the APAC region. So before I start with the problem statement, I would like to highlight that this year is 20 years anniversary of Infobip as a company. As you can see from the video in the earlier, we start from a small town in Croatia. Now we expand globally. So next is our footprint, and actually what I would like to share a little bit more about Infobip before we go into this problem statement. We are now operating in more than 75 countries worldwide. You know, in the South Asia Pacific, we have offices around the South Asia, also in the APAC regions. And last year alone, we are managing around 42 billion monthly interactions, uh, transactions, you name it, interaction from across channel. We also have a strategic partnership with all major software vendor like Adobe, Salesforce, Oracle, just to make sure that we are working closely with your ecosystem and with our strategic global client that we are supporting nowadays. So that pretty much about Infobip. Since we're operating for 20 years now. So we get recognized throughout many analysts, that's including the IDC and also Forrester, Juniper Research, and the Fast Company as one of the innovative tech company brand in 2025. And just recently, 2 weeks ago, we got a very good news from Gartner that right now Infobip ranking as a CPAT reader. This is the fourth consecutive years that we have this honorable mention in this 2026 Gartner Magic Quadrant for communication platform as a service. So that's a little bit about Infobip. Now I'm going to jump to the topic that everyone would like to know today and why we have this call. It's quite urgent. So we have been here in APAC for more than 16 years now. We have around like supporting, customer in these APAC regions. We have working with the ecosystem. We have regulatory compliance in multiple countries because when you are dealing with communication, of course, you have to be compliant with local compliance, right? I'll give you example, like in Thailand, we have PDPA in Malaysia. We also have APRA in Australia, Singapore, SRF, and in many more countries that we are comply with the local regulator. Okay, so now you know that we are experienced in these APAC regions. So the problem that we have right now and the problem that we all need to look at it, the problem that we're solving today, why APAC enterprise need a new customer experience, and also how the AI impact to a customer experience. So I'll give you a statistic, but there's going to be a lot of number today. But don't worry, because this slide will be shared to you after the webinar. So if you look into the APAC market right now, and I'm operating here in APAC is so many years, more than 10 years, I kind of understand that the challenge that APAC has because of variety of country, languages, the way that they set up, and the customer that have to be very localized in order to grab the market trend. So we can see that the growth in APAC for AI spending from 2024 is actually 100 billion. And we projected in 2029 with the IDC, they projected at 370 billion. That is 5x growth. And 80% of customer service issue resolved automatically by agentic AI by 2029. This is not too far off. If you look into the today trend, every company is moved into that direction, and that gives is opportunity for many company who actually been established in this AI and moving with the APAC trend will be also utilizing AI moving forward. um, and 51% is more messaging on Infobip APAC alone. Platform is actually growth like rapidly in the past 3 years. It keep on growing double digit year on year. So this is a little bit of understanding on the ground of why AI investment is one of the key trend in APAC and globally. Next one is the focus is not just only from the AI and APAC, but the customer, right? When we're talking about the customer here in APAC, if you look into the previous experience back in like 2022, 2023, and we're still using web search for enter the keyword on Google search and get the link and you browse the site, just ensure that you can actively engage with that product and service that the company or the brand provide. But this has been start moving and change, right? It's actually changed quite a lot. I think I lost Petra, but yeah, let me check if anything's okay. Um, I think so. Let me reshare my screen quickly. Okay, just give me a second. I think we have a technical error, but I'll try to make sure that I'll share the screen to everyone. Okay, we have someone to share the screen quickly. But again, when you look into the APAC, right, nowadays, it's not just only the customer behavior have been shift, right? But basically, if you look into this slide, sorry, let me go back quickly. So if you look into this slide, right, the starting web search is been the past era. Now, the second era that we are seeing, and this is one of the biggest trend, is that actually conversational chat. In APAC, you have a lot of company are doing chat and shop, and that chat and shop is actually not just only in a few company, but it's actually every brand is trying to grab that, right? You can see now TikTok live with, e-commerce built in, and you can check out from that process. It's actually becoming a trend right now in the South Asia Pacific and APAC as a regions. But in the future, we can foresee now that going to be another part of agentic come into play, meaning that people will use more on the AI search and trying to get the grabs of consumer to buy or acquire the product and service using that AI search. We can see that if you look into the chart here, Google share information discovery fell from 89% to 58% in 3 years. In 2025 alone, 58% are still using a Google search, but the increase of using the AI search is actually 20%. And I 100% strongly believe that this is going to be grow year on year because nowadays Google also introducing AI mode search where you get the recommendation right of the search engine. And this is going to increase the shift of customer behavior. And if you can see in APAC, with the 2.5 billion consumer we have nowadays, it's actually they're moving on. They're using messaging more and more, especially with the young generation like Gen Z. If you are Gen Z, basically, Gen Z is about Gen Z is about 30 years old and below. So meaning that if you are younger than 30 years old, you're Gen Z, and then now you probably use more messaging chat more than just giving a phone call to the brand. And also they're using mobile native, right? This is a typical APAC consumer. They are very advanced, building the super app and start to mobilize using this app as a native interaction to the brand, right? Digital channel. And if you look into the number, APAC e-commerce market in 2026 is actually 5.3 trillion, growing at 11% compound annual growth rate, right? So that is huge, huge growth, double digit. 78% of all APAC e-commerce actually transact happen on mobile device, right? So these some statistic that can give you understanding what is the current state of APAC consumer behavior right now. They ask messaging first. They like to interact on digital channel. They would like to be informed. They would like to be personalized, so forth and so on. And if you look into the market right now as ecosystem, right, the landscape of APAC, what kind of messaging channel that we have right now? I'm talking about two-way communication. WhatsApp, leading by Indonesia, India, and some part of Singapore, Malaysia. This as dominant channel, right? Two-way communications, 535 million plus user in India and 3 billion monthly active user globally. This is the largest two-way communication channel nowadays. And Infobip, we track that rate. 91% of Infobip conversation AI is actually happening in this channel. The second channel that we see in this ecosystem is Line. Line is actually dominant in Japan, Taiwan, and Thailand. Japan is around 96 million users, which is huge market, right? Taiwan is 21 million, and then Thailand is around 54 million, using this as a big ecosystem in Line. Line has a chat and shop. Line has almost like ecosystem in itself. Same with Kakao Talk, but specific for the South Korea. And we also have WeChat, which is leading in China, right? You can do actually everything using WeChat because this is very friendly and ecosystem is very strong and supported by the government. Moving on to Viber, which is leading channel for two-way communication in Philippines, 68 million users nowadays have a deep penetration across all the demographic in messaging. And of course, they can actually using this as a part of messaging channel. And Viber just announced that they will also support call channel. So meaning that you have a phone call on Viber chat, including bot and everything, right? So Zalo, very popular in Vietnam, dominated 75 million monthly active user and growing, owned by the local company and supporting payment, e-commerce, you name it, right? It's like a super app already. And the last but not least, but also dominant in this two-way communication OTT channel is Facebook Messenger, and Facebook Messenger come with the ecosystem of Meta, right? So this kind of ecosystem is actually here in South Asia. And the problem here is that how can you identify which channel is best suited for your use case, right? How can you make sure that you are actually expand if you have a multiple businesses across the regions? How can you work with this channel to engage direct to consumer? And the trend is will be growing on this digital channel in the next coming years for sure. But once you think about the ecosystem of this digital channel, you also have to think about what is the current setup in your own company, right? Many of the brands that we working in Asia Pacific, they have multiple vendor to support just the customer experience, you name it. I'll give you example. Like you have one CPaaS vendor supporting you some kind of communication channel. Like for example, email, you have one vendor, SMS, you have another vendor, WhatsApp, or even OTT channel, you have another vendor, mobile app managing by another vendor. It's a part of communication alone. And when you are trying to building, contact center platform and you already have contact center, that's going to be another silo, right? And now the AI chatbot is become popular. Every company is trying to do this AI chatbot, and there will be another tech stack. Plus, you already have marketing automation, which is also integrated with the CDP. Sometimes it's a different brand, sometimes it's the same brand. And the last part is analytic dashboard. So every stack that you're creating in this customer experience is actually create some kind of friction, and sometimes is lead to reputation and also frustration from the customer side. In 70% of APJ firms believe that orchestration will deliver significant, like competitive advantage if you can stitch all these data silos plus the communication channel in one go. And if you look into the fragmentation of revenue that bleeding every day from every team, you can see that the customer repeat themselves quite a lot of time when they are contacting contact center, right? They have to giving a name, probably giving a status, what is kind of issue, and moving forward to that problem statement itself. But it's take time. Not many brand has actually right off the bat recognize the customer and from the gate when they actually interact with the brand. And customer who have repeat themselves 2 to 3 times more likely to churn. Just to be honest with ourselves here, we also don't like to be repeat ourselves, right? And the second one that is actually creating a gap, which is AI can really personalize, because right now AI is based very heavily in the knowledge base, and sometimes knowledge base is scattered between the system. And when you're creating this kind of AI chatbot and it's not recognized and not become a level of personalized and doesn't have CDP know that purchase history, chatbot answer very generic question, you got zero value out of it, right? And when it's come to chatbot, when it's transferred to the agent, again, agent has to track down what is chatbot has been discussed with the customer. And we found out that 20 to 30% agent are spending this, just to understand what is the status of the customer when they are trying to support the customer. And that is an operational waste at scale every day, right? And I like the quote from Gartner, to be honest, in 2006. They say that if the data is fragmented, autom- autonomy become guesswork at scale. So this is quite a strong word, but I think all of you here as a professional handling customer experience will agree with me on this part. So now the problem is we all trying to fix this problem, but actually some is making it worse, right? 79% adopt the AI agents, which is another tech stack. And we found out that around like 40% plus of agentic AI project could be canceled by 2027 because it's unclear of value and in the rising of the cost of AIs and weak governance, right? You don't have a guardrail, you don't have a good setup, and data is just scattered, right? So AI agent is not really can support. And many times when we are dealing with this, we also ask ourselves, right, why are we starting AI project in the first place? And we will have some poll after this. Let me finish this slide and my section by giving you a problem statement here. I think we all understand now what is the real problem lying on our, future. And we can foresee that, now agentic AI project and the market right now, based on 2024 investment, 5 billion, it will grow in the next, 10 years or less than that. It will be around like 200 billion uh, cumulative annual growth rate, right? So the question isn't, do we need AI? But now every enterprise is investing. The question here is whether you building on a good foundation design of agentic as a part of the customer journey and the customer experience, or you are building another tech stack on top of the tech stack and create fragmented based on, and hoping that this will work, right? So this going to be one of the things that I would like you to think about it. And I also have some poll, which is I also try to understand from your side, the brand that actually try to invest in AI, right? The poll is very simple, and Petra will lead that poll, but it's going to be very interesting fighting here. So over to you, Petra.
Yes, thank you so much. So before we actually continue to the solution part, now that Ig has described all the problems we're tackling here, we would like to get your opinion on something. So please just feel free to vote.
So the poll is very simple, right? If you had to invest in one thing, and it's the only thing, the highest priority, what would that be for AI? You want to using AI investment to increase the revenue, or you want to invest in AI and the result is cutting the cost, or you want to invest in AI to mitigating the risk and boosting efficiency. So I'll leave
Okay.
it 1 minute for everyone to vote. Hopefully that everybody, uh, if you have one thing, to invest today, what would that be?
Okay, interesting. We can already see the results. I think the most is actually leaning towards number 3, mitigating risk with AI and boosting efficiency. That's very interesting. So just for the sake of time, let me just continue with this part of the preso. So just to comment on this, wait, just let me go back a little bit. Basically, this is interesting, and I think you're right to flag the mitigating risk part. But this is what I would like to ask. So, what good is better data and mitigating risk if your AI cannot act on it in the moment? So, what good are more channels if they're not connected? And this insight that most enterprises are missing is that these different things are not separate investments, but they also make one problem and they need one answer. So whatever option you actually voted for, this is exactly the problem that AgentOS was built to solve. So not just one of these things, but all of them together. And this is the great part. So now I want to move on to introducing the solution today and talk a little bit more in depth about our platform and what the vision behind it was. And so basically what Akarat was telling you about is that every time that a customer repeats themselves, it can hurt your loyalty, or every time that a high intent prospect reaches out and has to wait a certain amount of time, that revenue has the potential to go to a competitor that will respond to them faster. So every time that AI cannot personalize because your data is perhaps stored in a different system, it gives a generic experience, which goes to a customer who maybe already expects you to know them. So the problem that we find here isn't just the effort behind it, but it's rather around the architecture. And we believe that you cannot fix an architecture problem by just adding on more tools on top. So we see AgentOS as the answer to that. So it's not just another vendor in your stack, but it's the one operating system. So it combines your data, your AI, your channels, and your people working together, unified. So to give you a more concrete example, the starting point of any communication with the customer is always the customer's preferred channel. And in APAC, of course, that matters more than anywhere else. You know, someone in Japan contacts you online, someone in the Philippines on Viber and Messenger, and so on. AgentOS supports all of them. So the customer basically, picks up whatever they already have on their phone. So what triggers the interaction isn't always a direct message. It can even be a behavioral event, perhaps like an abandoned cart, or somebody wants to renew a policy date, or there was a specific page that was visited 3 times. So that event enters AgentOS and it kicks off the communication automatically. So what happens in the background at that moment, and this is the part that the customer never really sees, is the AI orchestrator reading this context. So every communication that goes through our platform to the customer, it basically gets, analyzed. The intent, the context is being understood, and the full picture of who is this customer, what is their history with you, what they have asked before, where they are in their journey. And from there, it determines the next best action for this specific customer. And then once the orchestrator has made that decision, the conversation goes one of 3 ways. So if the customer can solve their own problem, if it's just a simple frequently asked question, let's say, they can be routed to a self-service option. So there's no human needed here. But if the issue is more involved, automated workflows can take over. So a troubleshooting sequence, or maybe some sort of guided process in the chatbot, a series of steps that walk the customer through to the resolution. And if it genuinely needs a human because it's some sort of complex issue, or it's high value or sensitive, the communication gets escalated to a human agent who receives the full context of everything that the customer has said, everything that the system already tried, and the suggested next response. So they don't start from scratch. And yeah, of course, lately, what I want to emphasize here is the different types of agents that you can set up on our platform. Anything from, it basically gets adjusted based on the use case and based on your industry. So I actually want to give you a specific or a typical industry scenario application. So first, starting off with a retail and e-commerce example. And I also want to show you what setting this up actually looks like on our side, because I think that's often where people expect it to be a bit complicated, and it's not. So just imagine this scenario. A woman is browsing your online store and she views a specific product. She starts a communication around this product, and this is seen as a behavioral event. So it will trigger some sort of journey automatically and immediately, and she will get personalized messages that are relevant to what she was looking at, with an offer that makes sense for where she is in this stage of the consideration process. So once she replies, from there, AgentOS can read her response and decide what to do next. So if she's asking a question, the AI chatbot can handle it. If her intent signals are ready, show that she's ready to buy, she's asking perhaps about payment, about delivery, then the upsell AI agent can activate. So it takes her through the rest of the purchase, basically. It can answer objections, it can apply promo codes if that's part of the flow, and confirm the order. So basically, she will go just simple from browsing all the way to purchase without ever leaving the chat. And this is what building this sort of journey looks like. So what you're seeing here is the typical AgentOS interface. So the journey is pretty visual. So you can see exactly where each message goes, what triggers the chatbot, when the AI agent can step in, and when, if ever, there needs to be a transfer to human. So you don't have to write code. It's mapping out a flow. It's drag and drop and easy to set up. But also to show you on banking example, just so you can see how it's applicable to various different industries, of course. In this case, we have a use case where a person wants to purchase a home, but they're not sure what kind of loan they would qualify for or where they would even start. So what this kind of journey would look like. A customer could see a loan ad on Instagram, and they can easily just enter the chat from there. They have some sort of question, they're not sure what they would qualify for. And in the old world, that interest signal could oftentimes get lost. So maybe they would fill out some sort of web form and wait for a call back. Maybe they don't. Maybe either way, the moment has passed. And in this world, within just a couple minutes, they're pre-qualified. They've seen their options. They've booked a call with a specialist who already has everything. So really what we're trying to achieve here is turn a passive interest signal into a properly fully booked appointment in under 5 minutes without a human having to escalate, a human agent. And also, just to give you a bit of background, when we work with a new client, this is exactly how we start. So first, we agree on the problem, and not just simply we want to implement AI, but something more specific. Let's say we're losing customers at one point of submitting claims, or we have 40% drop-off during onboarding. This problem gives us a clear target of what we want to measure against. The second step, we identify the right channel. So where are your customers reachable the most? Which channel has the higher odds of engagement for that specific customer? And step 3, we actually build a communication. This is where all of these different components in the AgentOS platform come in. So the AI agents, the chatbots, the journeys, human handoffs, the agent copilot, and they're all assembled specifically for the problem that we defined in step 1. And it integrates also with whatever you're running today. So, it can work together with your stack. It doesn't have to completely rip everything apart. And step 4 is the outcome. Of course, the CSAT scores, the loyalty, customer lifetime value, revenue. We define what we're measuring before we start, and we track it from the first week. And one thing I would also like to emphasize, and this is specifically for those of you that work in banking, insurance, or any other regulated sector, the question that we hear very often is that we want to move fast on AI, but we cannot take compliant risks. And it's also something you mentioned earlier or answered in your poll, that mitigating risk is important, and we understand why. So Akarat was also telling you a little bit about this as well. The regulatory landscape in APAC is complex and it's getting even more demanding, not less. So we made sure that AgentOS was built with that reality in mind. So you don't have to choose between speed and safety, but we make every AI decision auditable. You can control which interactions require human review before a response goes out, and your compliance policy will run at the platform level, which means that it's consistent, it's enforceable, and it's provable to a regulator. So now that I've given you a little run through of the AgentOS platform, rather than me continuing to describe it, I want to actually hand off the mic to Marko to show you concretely what this can look like.
Thank you, Petra. I hope you can hear me. I was so immersed in what you were saying, so I forgot that it's my part to talk. So as Petra said, I'll walk you through the live demo, which is actually a video of our platform capabilities and how it affects the customer's experience. So everything that was shared before by Akarat and Petra heavily influenced the way how we built our platform. So Akarat gave an amazing overview of channels, of the people's behavior, about knowledge sharing, importance of knowledge sharing, customers hating to repeat themselves, customer preferences, and how data is being siloed and how that is a huge problem for businesses. And Petra also gave a huge bit of an insight on how our platform is consisted and what we are trying to achieve. So to emphasize everything, we've created a journey which is actually catering for the insurance use case. And we've split it into the two cases, so high value deal and low value deal. And this is all handled by our platform. And the platform is the one who is defining which branch of this journey you fall under. So if we take, for example, the entry point to our journey, it can be various entry points. So it can be either on a web page, some kind of start a chat with us. It can be a QR code, or as Petra was sharing also, it can be on Instagram, an ad that is triggering a WhatsApp conversation. So the whole of this presentation will be in two split screen, let's say. One side is customer's experience, where you see the mobile phone, and on the bigger screen, you can see what is the background of it, what our platform is actually doing, and how it is configured to support this experience. So when customer is triggering the communication, we have, and it is Olivia, a lady that is trying to find some kind of insurance for their car. And we are here seeing what is happening actually in the background on our platform. So as time passes, we can see that we are asking Olivia to provide information about the vehicle, model, brand, the year, the age. And all of this will determine, does Olivia fall under the low value deal or high value deal? And imagine yourself now, and we are catering for the business and for our customers' needs. So she was starting to do this at 9:20, and she had an important meeting at 9:30, and she completely forgot about this process. And what system is capable of doing here, we can nudge her, we can notify her and say to her, hey, Olivia, can you pick up where you left and continue this process? And in 1 hour and a half, we are notifying her, hey, if you continue, we will give you a discount if you apply this code. And this goes directly to what Petra was saying. Customers are really fast to get information from their competitors. So imagine Olivia going to other insurance provider, and she's exploring their capabilities, but we are here now quick to act, and we can, hey, if you use this code, you can get, 10% off. And this is very pleasing to Olivia. She says, yes, let's continue using this code. And now who is handling this information gathering? It's actually AI agent, which has its own, let's say, building blocks. Agent is using various tools. You can see on the right-hand side. It is using tools to provide a discount code. It is validating those discount codes. It is creating insurance quotas. It is making sure that payment went through. It is sending the payment agreement. It is doing all of these things. These are various tools that are built. But how it is instructed what to do, it is not programmatically. It is instructions written in plain English, but it can be in any language that you prefer. And this is the instructions for this AI agent. He's instructed what to do while Olivia is filling in this information. I want to walk you through what's happening. So he's doing this data collection. He needs to do this. He needs to do brand, model, year, age, and everything. And here is the process which is actually described also. So he can define which deals, which car models, manufacturers, years fall under which size of the deal. And that is directly influencing what is happening next. And as Olivia is now typing this here, we can see that this is a rather older car. She's a young driver, and she's not interested in any add-ons. And this is telling to the AI agent that this is a low-value deal, and it is continuing the journey within the automation process. And now Olivia is trying to, I don't know, either trick the system by applying another or wrong code here, but the system is smart enough and it has this tool that it can validate the code and say that this is not the code that is currently valid, and she's sharing the correct one. Now the pricing thing or this charging module is triggered, and she doesn't go through it with the payment, but she wants to ask about the prices of our competitors, because this AI can be fed with various knowledge sources. And we here imposed these guardrails. This is something which was talked about before by Petra and Akrat. So here we can see that this knowledge base is not filled with the competitor knowledge, and we prevented this agent to talk about our competitors, because we might leak some kind of data about our competitors, which could direct Olivia to the competitor, and we certainly don't want that. And after the payment is done, what happens is this agent has the ability to send the receipt or the payment completed notice to the customer. And this is how it looks like. Basically, it can be also adjusted and everything can be there. And what is the most important thing is that all of this data, all of this information that was provided by customer, that was gathered through communication, that was concluded by the AI agent, is stored within our customer data platform, or CDP. And all of this data is actually a gold mine for future campaigns, for future iterations. So you can imagine then in 1 year, this insurance policy will expire, and you can have a journey that is actually triggering as a reminder in 1 year to Olivia, though, that she needs to renew her insurance. And being one step ahead of your customer's need is what CDP truly allows, with gathering all of these information. So each event that happened, that she used the code, that she applied the insurance, and so on. So this wraps up this automated flow of low deal. Let's call it low deal. And we have this now high value deal, sorry. We have this other guy, Leon, who is driving a car that is actually expired, and he thinks of that, and he's like, oh my God, I need to register my car. I need to file out insurance. And by providing information about his car, which is a rather new car and an expensive car, and he was asking for roadside assistance as an add-on, he doesn't even have time to go for a coupon or some code. He needs his insurance yesterday, and that's why he's very rushing here. And you can notice that this is the same flow that we had with Olivia, but based on the information provided by the customer, he goes to a completely different branch, because we treat him as a high value deal and we are sending him to the agent.